Turning to our top story this hour, Japan's ruling party has selected former Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida as its new president and consequently the country's new prime minister. With no candidates obtaining a majority in the first round, the runoff was a head-to-head race between first-place Kishida and popular vaccine minister Taro Kono. In the runoff, Kishida defeated Taro Kono by 257 votes to 170. It was the second time lucky for the experienced politician. He lost out in 2020 to Yoshihide Suga, who is stepping down after just a year as prime minister. Kishida is widely regarded as a safe pair of hands, despite a low-key presence, which has sometimes been characterized as a lack of charisma. He has pledged to spend big on new pandemic stimulus while vowing to tackle income inequality and move away from the neoliberal economics that have dominated Japanese politics for the past 2 decades. And seeking to set himself apart from the unpopular pandemic response of Suga's government, he emphasized the lessons learned from his failure to win the leadership last time around. The new LDP chief has said that abolishing nuclear weapons is his life's work, and in 2016 helped bring then US President Barack Obama to Hiroshima on a historic visit. But despite his liberal reputation, he has been evasive on social hot-button issues like gay marriage. While vaccine chief Kono said he backed same-sex marriage and called for it to be discussed in Parliament, Kishida said that he had not reached the point for accepting same-sex marriage and took a softer stance than Kono on allowing married couples to keep separate surnames, another controversial issue. Both the party and the public will be scrutinizing Kishida's next moves at a time when Japan is still wrestling with the COVID pandemic and faces increasing security threats from North Korea and China. An extraordinary diet session will be convened on Monday, where Kishida will be officially nominated to take over the Prime Minister's office. The LDP has a majority in the lower house, essentially guaranteeing that he will become Prime Minister. Afterward, he will immediately form a cabinet and appoint ministers. We're joined live by our correspondent Phoebe Amorosa from Tokyo for more on this. Phoebe, help us understand what Kishida becoming the new Prime Minister means for Japan.
Well, absolutely. As you just reported, Kishida represents a safe pair of hands. He's seen as representing stability and a fairly predictable choice. So in that sense, we will see the ruling Liberal Democratic Party largely maintain the status quo. In fact, I've just been out speaking to some people on the streets towards the reaction, and people seem largely supportive, although some did say that they were hoping for Kono to get into power. But they're saying that some were saying that we might see a continuation of certain policies under Abenomics. However, Kishida has said that their income inequality is a huge problem. He's looking to tackle neoliberal policies and this kind of trickle-down approach. So he's trying to position himself as a leader of the people. Now, the votes for Kishida do not necessarily represent support within the LDP, particularly for him as a candidate, as a leader. It's said that he is lacking charisma, but there's a certain amount of caution when it comes to Taro Kono. He has some views that are considered maybe a little too far out of the party line. He publicly criticized the South Korean envoy, and when he was defense minister, he also unilaterally took a decision to scrap a missile program, and that was seen as a bit too unpredictable. Whereas Kishida has been around in the party for many years. He has also run second runner-up to Suga in the elections last year round. So he was seen as continuing this kind of stability. And when it comes to forming relationships with the US, a very important ally to Japan, he's seen as maintaining that. But of course, he is facing a huge challenge. Japan is still battling the pandemic, and he will be needing to focus on getting the economy back on track. So that is going to be his priority number one.
And by late November, Japan will hold its general election. And what other issues can we expect Kishida and his party members to address?
So, as I just mentioned, income inequality has been a huge focus of these campaigns, and Kishida has promised to give financial aid to renters, to families with young children. He's also focusing on the issue of defense and security, and this can mean maritime security. The presence of China in the South and East China Seas has been a huge focus, as we saw the countries in the Quad meeting just recently discussing how best to unite against what they see China's increasing military presence and assertiveness. But it also means financial and economic security. Supply chains, particularly regarding semiconductors, has been a huge issue. The Quad has agreed to work together on that, and Kishida has said that he will make that a top focus. But as I mentioned, again, the economy, Japan is only exiting a state of emergency from tomorrow. It's seen as lagging behind many other countries when it comes to opening up, and Kishida will have to strike a balance between putting Japan back on track, but also ensuring that there is no rebound in cases. We are going to see some restrictions still last for a month going forward. And he will have to also focus on how to stimulate the economy. He's promised a package of trillions of yen. We'll have to see how he proceeds on that front, but he's making sure that that is going to be his priority, particularly as he is facing a public that is highly critical of the LDP's pandemic response. Public support under the Suga administration fell to around 30%, and he is facing the battle of having to really win back public support.
Now, you mentioned China, and going forward, how will a prime ministership led by Kishida shape the government's strategy towards an aggressive China in the region?
Again, Kishida is known as a moderate, and his tone during his campaign has been one that has seen fairly harsh at some times towards his stance on China, to one that seems open to dialogue. So whilst he has criticised China and said it represents a threat and he will not tolerate its authoritarian approach in the South and East China Seas, he's also said that he's very open to dialogue. He's recognised that there are a huge number of exchanges, people to people, and that China is Japan's #1 trading partner, and Japan is China's #2 trading partner. So it's very important to keep the dialogue open, but he said that any discussions must be incredibly frank. They must be in lines of principles of freedom and democracy. So we can expect him to walk a very cautious path, leaving the door open, but also trying to show a united and strong front to the people back here in Japan.
Thank you, Phoebe Amorosa, for joining us and for your insights there.